You are everything in here. Your motivation, your emotions, your dreams, 2 + 2 is 4, everything is in your brain. You are your brain. And that's why I say that you're a neurosculptor. Whoever designed brains put in some basic formatting. And then whoever designed brains said, look, I'll give you some time. I'll give you a good 20 years that your brain is very malleable. I use the metaphor, and we're going to talk about, of rubber bands. Each section of your brain comes in a certain size, like a certain size rubber band. Whether it stays that way or not is totally dependent on what you do in those first 20 years of life. That's where peak plasticity is. With my gray hair, I want to quickly say, you can change your brain and stretch your rubber bands until the day you die or get dementia. But every year after age 20, it takes more effort for less stretch. Did you hear me? And so if you really want to impact a human being, or if a girl really wants to impact herself, get on it in those first 20 years. And that's why organizations like Girl Scouts are so critical. And that's why I call you neurosculptors. So when I talk to kids, no matter what age, whether they're 8 or 18, I say, I thought I was JoAnn. That's my first name. I thought I was JoAnn when I was your age. I wasn't. I was just becoming JoAnn. And I was building myself. And I find that most kids don't really understand this until you say it to them. They think they are who they are. They're not. Do you think back to what you were like when you were 8? There are some parts of you that are like that. Your temperament basically doesn't change, but everything else does. And so it's a building process. So I talk about each part of the brain as a rubber band. I may show you some of mine. Oh, why not? Let's see, they're back here. The part of my brain that dealt with spelling came in really big, and I used it a lot. Look at me. Look at me. I'm over here. Sometimes I want you to look here instead of the screen, okay? It was big, and I used it. And so I became the best speller in the state of Ohio by age 10. Piece of cake. The part of my brain that dealt with math. And I swear if I'd been a Girl Scout, I would probably be the first female president of the United States. But there were no Girl Scouts in my area in Hubbard, Ohio, right on the border of Pennsylvania. But I had a daddy who said, honey, girls need to understand math. He was way ahead of his time. And he said, stick with it. And I did, to make him proud. And I ended up with a PhD in statistics as a second major. Had I not done that, had I avoided it, had I thought I'm a girl and I'm not good at math, I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you today. So you don't get to choose your rubber bands, but you do get to choose how big they become and how effective you become. But you better do it during the peak elastic years. I'm still working on mine. I don't go to bed at night until I have accomplished 3 things, mostly to keep this thing growing. Because the issue is with the brain, if you stop doing anything, math, speaking publicly, whatever, for any length of time, the parts of your brain that do that go, this must not be important anymore. Let's start to fossilize. In the brain world, what that means is it's like putting your rubber band in a junk drawer for 10 years and then taking it out. What happens? It's lost its elasticity, and it won't get as big, and it might even break. Do you hear what I'm saying? Girls avoiding things is one of the things we worry about most. Because I don't know how to say this any clearer. We don't understand why, but the human brain has this characteristic. It tends to want to do what it has big rubber bands in, and to avoid what it has small rubber bands in. The emotional part of the brain, when you ask little JoAnn to do spelling, goes, oh joy, could I study the dictionary all year? And then when you ask little JoAnn to do math homework, the emotional part of the brain goes, OMG, do I have to? And so we're up against it. And the emotional center of girls, I don't know if you know this or not, there are distinctive differences in the emotional center of girls and the emotional center of boys. I'm going to show you some of them. And so for girls, avoidance of what they're not good at is neurobiologically built in more so than for boys. Isn't this a kick? Really? Who designed this system? So the rubber bands are critically important, and it's important that kids understand that. That's why I wrote a book for kids about the brain, so that they could see that they need to change things. So the first decade-ish of life, everybody in the field says, that's when you do most of your work. I'm kind, and newer research has said the second decade is just as important. So I'm giving you 20 years to give it the best that you can give it in human beings. After that, if you're older than 20, keep working hard and longer, okay? So you can change all parts of your brain. The three major parts that I talk to people about, the prefrontal cortex is the seat of judgment. You can change that. You make stupid judgments, that's actually quite good, because there's a part called the ACC. I didn't show it on the thing, but if you go right to the middle of your head and you dig in about a half an inch, don't do it. There's a part called the ACC. It's the anterior cingulate cortex, if you want to be exact. And it has a particular function. It only gets activated when you make a mistake. And everything we've learned is that it's designed to do this. Look at me. Hey, this is important. Learn it. Let it impact you. We think it was designed for species preservation, so that when you make mistakes in the first 20 years of life, you remember them and you learn from them and you do something else. I work with schools all the time begging them not to go for the singular right answer quickly, but to let kids make mistakes over and over, because it is designed to change the brain more than spitting back a right answer. The worst thing you can do for a growing brain is to have it rely on memorizing and spitting back the right answer. And what do girls want to do in school? It just drives me nuts. So the prefrontal cortex can change in association with the ACC. The cortex, the big wrinkled part, is where all the thinking happens. And the amygdala and the part that's near it, called the limbic system, that's where your emotion is, where your instincts are, where your motivation is somewhat. So you can change all of these.